Have you noticed, I mean, have you really stopped to notice how hard it is to get people to pay attention anymore?
Oh, absolutely.
To, genuine human talent, real skill.
The kind that takes a lifetime to build.
Exactly. It feels like we've just hit a wall, a cultural wall where the average person just, well, they just shrug. You need something extreme now just to cut through the noise.
It's a kind of exhaustion, isn't it? The exhaustion of traditional entertainment. But it's more than just being tired of it. It feels more like a systemic hunger for escalation.
Escalation, yes.
The bar for what counts as a spectacle is just so high now that if you want a mass audience to stop scrolling for even a second, you need shock. Pure, unfiltered shock.
And that's where it gets dark. The human body, our own biology, has to be subjected to something grotesque just to get a sliver of that attention.
It's true.
Our sources for this dive are full of it. We are actively seeking out things like brutal slap fights.
Which are just primitive.
Utterly primitive. Or these bizarre exhibition matches. Anything for that raw, immediate, visceral hit. The sweet science, the nuance, the footwork, all of that is being traded in for pure televised damage.
And that craving for damage, that's what makes our topic today so chillingly prophetic.
You're talking about the movie.
14 years ago, a film came out, Real Steel. Hugh Jackman. And at the time, it just seemed like, fun sci-fi, a bit goofy maybe.
I remember it. A father-son story with some cool robots. It was entertaining.
Right. But what our sources are suggesting is that we need to look at that film not as fiction, but as a kind of an alarming forensic report of our own decline. It's a vision that isn't some far-off future. It's happening right now.
We're living in it.
We are living in this really strange overlap, aren't we? We're at the absolute peak of robotics development.
Yeah.
I mean, the hardware we're seeing could do things that were pure CGI a decade ago.
Dynamic movement, balance, taking impacts.
All of it. And at the exact same moment, we are seeing what the material calls the absolute exhaustion of traditional entertainment.
So the two trends are meeting.
And the message screaming from that intersection is just undeniable. The human body is no longer sufficient. It's not enough for the spectacle the masses demand. They want destruction. They want brutality. They want steel.
Okay, so let's really get into this, because the moment you see one of those humanoid robots moving with that frightening agility, dodging things, jumping, getting back up after a fall, the question just hits you cold and sharp. Is the world of Real Steel, where human boxing is totally gone, is that actually possible?
And if it is, how soon?
Exactly.
How soon? But our mission today for this deep dive, it goes beyond just asking if the tech works. Our focus is more of a forensic autopsy.
On the human cost.
On the human cost.
Yeah.
What fundamental parts of us, our value, our jobs, our humanity, what gets lost on the way of this replacement? We're going to be looking at scenarios the sources describe as being far more threatening than promising. It's a somber mission, but I think it's an essential one.
Okay, so to structure this forensic report on our own obsolescence, we've pulled 3 key ideas from the material.
3 guideposts.
Right. We're going to dissect the physical limits, what the sources call the biological ceiling. Then we'll explore the socioeconomic engine behind it all, the Colosseum of resentment.
And finally, the really unsettling part, the philosophical idea of the data set as a soul.
So prepare yourself, because we are starting with the hard facts, the failure. This is a forensic look at the fatal limitations of the flesh. All right, let's begin with that first concept, and it's a hard one to swallow. The biological ceiling.
It's depressing, really.
It is. The sources are just plain about it, unequivocal. The human body has reached its limit, an ultimate limit on speed, strength, and just structural endurance.
And this isn't a training issue. It's not like we just need a better workout plan.
No, this is a fixed structural barrier. No amount of training, no drug, no science within the realm of what makes us human can get us past it. We are, in a very real sense, doomed from the start.
It's the ultimate bottleneck, isn't it? In a world that is otherwise defined by things growing exponentially, we've pushed the human form to incredible peaks, sure, Olympic peaks.
Of course.
But those peaks are still defined by the basic biological tolerances we evolved with. And when you're talking about high-impact sports like boxing, the limits are, well, they're immediate and they are terrifyingly specific.
Can you break down some of those specific constraints for us? What is it about our biology that just fails?
We can get very specific. Let's talk about the central nervous system, the brain.
Okay.
The human brain is simply not designed to repeatedly absorb, say, 1,100 pounds of pressure, which is, a pretty typical output for a professional heavyweight boxer.
It's a miracle they can do it at all.
But they can't. not without immediate catastrophic and cumulative failure. That is a fixed, immutable fact of human physics. But it's not just the force, it's the speed.
The speed of reaction or thought.
Both, but really it's the physiological latency. The time it takes for a stimulus, a punch coming at you, to travel from your eye, get registered by the brain, processed.
The brain has to decide what to do.
Decide the response, then send that motor signal down the arm to block or dodge. That entire chain of events takes the human system between 200 and 300 milliseconds.
A fifth of a second.
At best. And that is our physical clock speed. You can't train your nerves to conduct signals faster than the laws of physics allow. That's the hard limit.
That is just such a dark realization because as a species, we're programmed to want to improve faster, stronger, better.
Always.
But the athletic world just slams into this physical structural wall. You can't train your skull to be denser than bone allows. You can't make your nerves fire faster than they're able.
And this is exactly where human biology becomes what the sources call a system error in the context of our modern world.
A system error.
Think about the world we live in right now. We're in the era of fiber optics, data at nearly the speed of light. We have 3-nanometer processors doing billions of things a second. Instant gratification.
Everything on demand.
Right. And in that world, our biology, with its need for sleep and recovery, and its built-in 200 millisecond delay, it just feels desperately slow. It's an analog part trying to survive in a purely digital system. And it can't win.
Our meat suits just can't keep up with the pace we've set for ourselves. And the sources say this failure is maybe most tragically obvious in traditional boxing.
The sweet science.
Yeah, that historic, nuanced sport. It's turning into what they call a museum piece.
It's the decline of art into artifact. Think about the purists who love boxing. They appreciate the history, the footwork, the feints.
The 12-round chess match.
The long game.
Yeah.
But that appreciation takes patience. It takes knowledge and an attention span. For new generations, though, raised on these hyper-edited 5-second clips where attention is measured in milliseconds.
It's boring to them.
Watching two athletes study each other for 3 minutes, waiting for that perfect opening, it fails the dopamine test. It feels boring and archaic.
And that failure to deliver instant dopamine, it points to this deeper societal hunger, doesn't it? This morbid thrill we're seeing in things like absurd exhibition fights, or those primitive slap tournaments. Why have they exploded?
It's because the public has already accepted the premise. They've figured out that skill has plateaued, so the appeal isn't the technique anymore.
It's just the damage.
It is pure, immediate damage. The public seeks that morbid thrill because the athlete can't really surprise them with skill anymore. When skill hits a ceiling, the only place left for the spectacle to go is, well, it's destruction.
So we're in this awful transitional phase, watching humans basically destroy their own bodies in these primitive ways, just to meet a demand for a spectacle that their bodies can't safely provide. It's self-sabotage, and it's driven by the market demanding more and more impact.
And that's the real tragedy in the movie's premise. Human boxing didn't go away because it was bad or because the athletes weren't dedicated. It went away because it became insufficient. It just wasn't enough for the level of visual violence and immediate impact the modern viewer demands.
And that pain is all embodied in the main character, Charlie Kenton, the former boxer. His whole life is about this one concession. He has to accept this most uncomfortable truth.
Which is?
That in a world that demands the perfection of impact and speed, his beautiful, highly refined skill set is worthless because, as the sources put it, the fragility of the flesh is a hindrance.
And that is the forensic conclusion for this first part. For the masses, the human athlete is a failed prototype. A fragile first draft.
Man is history.
Seals the future. We're watching the audience actively choose pure performance over flawed potential. And the human body just can't compete with the curve of what a machine can do. Not when that machine is designed only for destruction.
Okay, so if the biological ceiling gives us the cold, technical reason for the shift.
The scientific justification.
Right. Then this next section forces us to look at something much darker. The socioeconomic engine that's actually driving the replacement. We have to shift from physical limits to this idea of the Colosseum of resentment, a spectacle that's fueled by pure economic desperation.
This is where the story stops being about cool robots, and it becomes a really brutal mirror for our own anxieties. the anxieties we feel right now about automation and AI taking over.
Absolutely.
The sources draw a very harsh, direct line from the fictional despair of a character like Charlie Kenton to the very real pain millions of people are feeling today.
Let's focus on the most jarring metaphor in that whole film, the one that the sources pull out.
I know which one you mean.
It's Charlie Kenton's decision. He literally sells the custody of his own son, Max, for a pile of cash.
And what does he do with that cash?
He immediately plans to use it to buy another robot, another technological gamble, just to try and stay relevant in a world that's leaving him behind. It's a profound act of human sacrifice.
It's a horrifying story choice, but it holds a magnifying glass right up to the modern parallel. We are in a crisis where millions feel like they're being forced to sacrifice their futures, their stability,
their connections,
their most basic human connections, family, retirement, community, all of it for a technological gamble. We're metaphorically selling our most precious assets, our time, our attention, our kids' futures, just to buy a piece of the machine, hoping it'll keep us afloat in an economy that just doesn't feel like ours anymore.
It is the ultimate act of desperation, isn't it? You sacrifice the future, your own child, to fund a tool that gives you a shaky, unstable present.
And that feeling, that constant gnawing anxiety of being displaced, it breeds something toxic. It breeds an inevitable systemic hatred toward the things that replace us.
Which is completely understandable.
Of course. We're not talking about some distant future. Right now, today, millions are watching AI and automation just absorb jobs, not just factory jobs anymore.
No, creative fields, journalism, logistics.
All of it. And that creates what the sources call a growing hatred toward the machine. It's this invisible, intangible enemy, a cold algorithm that doesn't feel anything, but it cuts so deeply into your economic stability, into your self-worth.
And here is the great paradox, the really twisted psychological hook that the sources identified. This hatred, it's what fuels the spectacle.
Yes.
If the machine is the enemy, why on earth would we pay to watch it fight?
Because that's the catharsis. That's the psychological release valve. If you're a factory worker who got replaced by a robotic arm or an accountant whose job was eaten by an AI, what could possibly be more satisfying than seeing a multi-million-dollar humanoid?
It's a very symbol of your displacement.
The symbol of the corporate investment that threw you away.
Yeah.
What's better than seeing that thing get violently dismembered in a ring?
Yeah, it stops being a sport. It's financial and symbolic revenge, and we're paying for tickets to watch it.
100%.
Yeah.
The robot ring is no longer just a venue. It becomes what the sources call the Colosseum of the displaced.
I like that term.
It offers this profound, even if it's just for a moment, this form of symbolic vengeance. When you see that high-tech machine, which represents all that corporate capital, that cold efficiency, the future that left you behind,
seeing it torn to pieces,
violently torn apart, it satisfies that deep, desperate human need to see money burn in a spectacular way. For a moment, it eases the pain of being replaced by that exact technology.
The machine that took my job is now being destroyed for my entertainment. It's a stunningly efficient and deeply cynical loop of manufactured resentment.
It is.
But if it's just symbolic vengeance, aren't we just paying for a more elaborate kind of despair? We hate the thing that replaced us, but we're the ones financing its spectacle.
And that is the really somber realization here.
Right.
We don't go to these robot fights out of some pure admiration for the engineering. We go because deep down, we enjoy seeing the cold, hard metal that took our bread turn into scrap metal for our delight. It's a tragic, self-serving show where we pay to watch the very forces that dispossessed us, capital and technology, fight each other, just so we can feel, for a moment, like we're still in charge.
We're paying to watch the funeral pyre of the future that kicked us out, and we're just hoping the flames will warm us up a little, even though we know that future is still coming for us. So we've covered the biology and the resentment. Now we have to pivot back to the cold, hard tech, because we need to look at the limitations of the movie Real Steel itself.
Right.
In the 14 years since it came out, the technology has just accelerated so fast that the biggest flaw in the whole premise, it's now glaringly obvious, and has already been solved.
The sources are very clear on this. The failure point of the fiction, the bottleneck, was always the human pilot.
The human in the loop.
The human in the loop. The incredible machine was consistently wasted by a mediocre pilot. Just think about it. The robot was powerful, fast, resilient, but its performance was capped. capped by the reaction time, the emotional weakness, and just the physical distance of the person with the controller.
We saw it happen over and over in the movie. Charlie loses his robot, Noisy Boy, because he gets arrogant. He gets distracted by the crowd. He's emotionally compromised.
All classic human failings.
All of them. Or his other robot, Ambush, is just too slow to react. He can't process the fight in real time under pressure. The machine was capable, but the interface, the human brain, was just not fast or consistent enough. It was the system error again.
That's the tragedy of that transitional phase, right? You're relying on the meat suit to drive the metal suit. But the terrifying reality of right now, our present moment, is that the hardware has caught up, and we are cutting out the middleman.
No more pilot.
No more pilot. The combat humanoids, or just the dynamic balancing systems we're seeing from robotics companies today, they don't need a human to tell them how to dodge a hook or land a punch. They're becoming fully autonomous. They learn and react entirely inside their own digital minds.
And that marks the definitive end of an era, doesn't it? The end of human potential driving this kind of combat. The machine doesn't need Charlie Kenton's flawed 200 millisecond delayed brain anymore.
Not at all.
So what are the concrete, quantifiable advantages that a non-biological fighter has? The things that just seal the deal on human obsolescence here?
Well, the list is absolute, and it's terrifying in its efficiency. First, a robot doesn't get distracted by a camera flash or the roar of the crowd. Second, doesn't feel pressure or fatigue.
100% output first, second to last.
Exactly. And most critically, it doesn't forget its training because of panic or exhaustion. A moment of high-speed chaos doesn't slow the system down. In fact, it triggers the fastest, most mathematically perfect defensive countermeasure possible. And it does it in sub-millisecond timeframes.
Okay, so if a human's reaction time is 200 milliseconds, what are we talking about for these autonomous systems?
We're talking about a dimension of speed that is, for all intents and purposes, instantaneous to us, sub-millisecond reaction times. Their sensors see a punch coming, their processors calculate the perfect counter vector, and the motors start moving before a human eye has even fully registered the initial attack.
They're always operating several steps ahead.
Always. That quantitative difference, our 200 millisecond delay versus their near zero delay, means the machine is fundamentally playing a different, faster game.
It's achieving a state of pure, relentless execution that a human can only dream of for a split second before fear or exhaustion kicks in.
And that autonomy means reality isn't just going to match the movie. It's going to blow past it with a speed Charlie Kenton could never have hoped to control. We are going to see a level of technical precision and brutality that no human pilot, let alone a human fighter, could ever match. The fight stops being a proxy battle between two clumsy humans with controllers.
And it becomes a pure performance of optimized engineering and code.
This is where the analysis gets into the really destructive part, I think. The role of AI and algorithms in all this. We're moving beyond simple human instructions to algorithmic optimization, which in a combat setting is just destruction perfected.
What does that mean exactly? Optimized by an algorithm.
It means a strike isn't just thrown when it can be. It's executed in the exact millisecond that maximizes force transfer and minimizes any chance of a counter. The speed is dictated by the motors, not muscles, and the algorithm calculates the perfect leverage point, the perfect angle.
How faster than we can see.
The result is a fight that's executed at a speed and precision the human eye can barely follow, let alone anticipate.
It's too perfect, too fast, too devastating. The human element, which brought error and variation, also brought vulnerability. It brought the humanity. Yeah. By taking out the error, we're taking out the art.
And that is the forensic conclusion for this section. This transition marks the end of an era driven by human potential and the thrill of watching someone overcome their physical limits. The future ring doesn't have a man controlling a machine. It has an autonomous entity designed for absolute perfection and destruction. Human error has been eliminated. And with it, so has human relevance.
So we've eliminated human error, and we've entered this era of technical perfection. And that brings us to the most complex, maybe the most philosophical part of this autopsy.
It does.
The sources force us to go back to that central, almost spiritual question the film asks about the little robot, Adam. Did it have a soul, or was it just a machine?
And the movie's answer, because it was fiction, was, well, it was sentimental and safe.
Of course.
Adam was presented as just an empty vessel, a Gen 2 sparring bot, a blank canvas. He was really just a mirror for the humans. Charlie projected his lost boxing technique onto him. Max, the son, projected his faith and his innocence onto him.
So Adam didn't have a soul in the classic sense. He was a machine that humans filled with their own meaning.
Exactly. He was a vessel for their redemption. A beautiful, romantic idea.
but an idea that's becoming technologically obsolete. That line between machine and something more is blurring at a terrifying speed. Current AI systems aren't just following commands anymore. They are demonstrating what looks for all the world like emergent autonomous intention.
The optimization levels we're seeing in AI models today are bordering on the unthinkable. We're talking about massive models running locally on the device itself that have processing and adaptation capabilities that are almost indistinguishable from humans, at least in their outcome. They're so complex they move beyond simple algorithms into something far more intricate.
Which forces us to redefine what a soul even is in the 21st century, and that leads to this chilling definition from the sources.
Yeah.
The data set as a soul.
Think about it. What is our consciousness really, if not the sum total of all our unique experiences and memories shaping our behavior and our personality? We are now injecting trillions of data points into these combat systems. Records of every human fight, physics simulations, real-time adaptations based on millions of trials. This massive digital experience creates unique combat personalities. The robot isn't driven by some mystical life force. It's driven by its unique digital experience. Its data set. That's its soul.
And that takes us right to the black box phenomenon, which is a terrifying concept. For anyone listening, the black box means this. We know what data we put into the machine and we see the action it takes.
The input and the output.
But the process in the middle, the path the AI took to make its decision, is so complex that even the engineers who built it can't fully understand why it chose to do something specific, something brilliant or unexpected.
It's like trying to trace a single drop of water through the entire ocean.
Let's use the example from the sources to make it really clear. Imagine two robots, physically identical, right off the same assembly line, same motors, same hardware. They're twins.
Functionally, yes, twins. But then you train them on different data sets. Let's say one is trained on the cold, calculated defensive strategies of a legendary MMA champion. The other is trained on aggressive, unpredictable street fighting data.
Their final combat identity, their personality, will be totally different.
Completely. The one trained on counterpunching might develop what looks like tactical aggressiveness. It's always looking for the opportunity to end the fight quickly. It values efficiency.
Meanwhile, the other one, trained on defense and weathering storms, develops a cold defensiveness. It calculates every risk, it optimizes for survival, and it almost never attacks first. It waits for the perfect counter.
Their bodies are identical, but their essence, their combat identity, is distinct. Their soul is their unique digital experience, their mathematical optimization. It's the difference between a machine that just executes and a machine that seems to intuit.
And that's the core question, isn't it? When an algorithm can recognize strategy, adapt its own technique in milliseconds, and make autonomous decisions that look like intuition, that clever feint, that calculated risk, does the line between a perfect simulation of consciousness and the real thing even matter anymore?
If the machine can replicate the function of intuition, the function of a distinct personality, and you can't tell the difference in the outcome, then the metaphysical debate about whether it has a real soul becomes
irrelevant.
It becomes irrelevant for all practical purposes.
Right.
The only thing left is how effective this system is. We've tragically managed to quantify the spiritual realm by reducing intuition to a data set.
So the final epitaph from this philosophical autopsy is just, it's grim, but it feels necessary. Perhaps the soul in the 21st century is nothing more than the peak point of a system's optimization.
We created a definition of consciousness that can now be achieved with enough data and processing power.
So this forensic autopsy, it's taken us through the failure of our own biology, the tragedy of our economic despair, the terrifying perfection of autonomous machines, and finally, the quantifying of the soul itself.
It's a heavy path.
It is. And looking back at Real Steel, what really stands out to me now is just how quickly real-world tech has made that movie's fiction look like something we can easily surpass.
And the film is only 14 years old. That fact alone should give us profound pause.
It just confirms the terrifying speed of our own decline relative to the machine's acceleration.
Yeah.
The core technical problem is still there, and it's unsolvable for us. Biological latency cannot compete with AI speed.
Especially not when there's a physical barrier like a skull or a rib cage involved.
Yeah.
The human body is optimized for survival, not for optimal destruction. The machine is optimized only for destructive impact. One of those is always going to win the spectacle.
So what's the final prognosis? What does the future landscape look like? We don't think traditional boxing or human combat sports will just vanish completely, do we?
No, not completely. But the sources suggest a very clean, inevitable division based on market demand.
Okay.
Traditional boxing will probably follow an expansion model similar to horse racing. It'll become niche, an event for enthusiasts, for historians, purists, the few who still admire the original art form with all its flawed human beauty.
And the mass audience?
The massive public, driven by that thirst for speed and violence we identified at the start, will inevitably move to the machine spectacle.
So that leaves us with this final, somber, tragic division of the sporting world. A split based on what the modern audience truly craves.
It's the ultimate market segmentation. What level of stimulation do you require? On one side, you'll have a spectacle that provides oil for the anesthetized masses who only seek easy dopamine.
A constant, easy fix, unparalleled destruction and speed with all that boring human delay edited out.
And on the other side,
blood for the few who still dare to feel and admire the art of a sport. A small, dedicated following committed to the flawed, beautiful imperfection of human skill. That division. That might be the saddest part of this whole prophecy. The masses choosing anesthesia over admiration.
We've dissected the evidence, we've laid out the case for human obsolescence in the ring.
But before we close this deep dive, we want to leave you with one final provocative thought to consider, based on everything we've just analyzed. If our human desire for spectacle has now fundamentally exceeded the biological capability of the human body, forcing us to spend billions of dollars to invent our own obsolescence in the form of these perfect, destructive machines, what does that relentless pursuit of perfection, of speed, of finality, what does it reveal about our own inherent dissatisfaction with humanity itself?
Were we always going to replace ourselves simply because we couldn't stand our own limits, our own inevitable slowness?
Keep exploring those consequences and the cost of the steel prophecy.